He grabbed the microphone at his 42nd birthday party, surrounded by 200 guests, and pointed at his children. "From now on, you will call Miss Vanessa Mom. Your real mother does not deserve that title anymore." His mother laughed. His sister filmed it. His mistress smiled. But his wife? She just touched the gold locket around her neck and whispered one word into her hidden earpiece. Now. What happened next would destroy everything Marcus Wells thought he knew about his life, because the woman he had just humiliated in front of everyone who mattered, she owned the mansion they were standing in. She owned the building where he worked. She owned properties in 12 states worth $4.2 billion. And she had been waiting 18 months for this exact moment. Marcus thought he married a broke children's book illustrator. He thought she was beneath him. Powerless, easy to control. He was wrong, dead wrong. Her father was a secret billionaire who spent his life protecting her from gold diggers and liars. He investigated Marcus before Elena ever said yes to that first date. And he left her everything, including evidence of crimes that would send her husband to prison. This is not just a story about revenge. This is a story about a woman who chose silence until silence was no longer an option. A woman who documented everything. A woman who knew exactly when to strike. Stay with me until the end, because the final twist, you will never see it coming. Lesson and value. Here is what this story will teach you. Never mistake kindness for weakness. The quietest people are often the most powerful. They are watching, they are learning, they are waiting. Document everything, in relationships, in business, in life. The person who prepares wins. And most importantly, know your worth. Do not let anyone make you feel small just because you choose not to announce your greatness. Royalty does not need a crown to be royal. It just needs to know when to rise. Meaning of the story. This story is about patience, dignity, and the power of strategic silence. Elena could have destroyed Marcus on day one. She had the money. She had the resources. She had every reason to fight, but she waited. She let him reveal his true character. She let him dig his own grave. And when he finally went too far, when he tried to take her children, she struck with precision. The lesson? You do not have to react to every insult. You do not have to prove yourself to people who refuse to see your value. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming undeniable and letting your enemies destroy themselves. The champagne was flowing, the jazz band was playing, and Marcus Wells was living his best life. At least, that is what he thought. 200 guests filled the grand ballroom of the estate, their laughter echoing off the vaulted ceilings as crystal chandeliers cast warm light across marble floors. It was Marcus's 42nd birthday, and he had made absolutely certain that everyone who mattered knew about it. He moved through the crowd in his custom Italian suit, shaking hands with executives, accepting congratulations from colleagues, basking in the attention, like a man who believed he had finally arrived. Senior Vice President at Meridian Development Corporation. A mansion that looked like it belonged in a magazine, a beautiful wife, 2 perfect children. Marcus Wells had everything. But if you looked closely, really paid attention, you would notice something off about the whole scene. You would see a woman in the background, moving quietly through the kitchen, checking on the caterers, making sure every detail was perfect. That woman was Elena, Marcus's wife. She wore a simple black dress, nothing that would draw attention. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and around her neck hung a small gold locket that she touched every now and then, like it was giving her strength. Elena had been up since 6 that morning, coordinating this entire party. She had called the vendors, confirmed the guest list, arranged the flowers, handled every crisis. But Marcus had not thanked her once. He had barely looked at her all day. She was used to being invisible in her own marriage. It had not always been this way. There was a time when Marcus looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. But that was years ago, back when they first got married. Now she was just the woman who kept things running while he climbed the corporate ladder and forgot where he came from. And tonight, she was about to find out just how little he valued her. Marcus's mother, Judith, was holding court in the living room, surrounded by guests who hung on her every word. Judith was a loud woman, the type who laughed too hard at her own jokes and had an opinion about everything. She had never liked Elena, thought her son had married beneath him, and she made sure Elena knew it every chance she got. Tonight was no different. Judith spotted Elena near the kitchen door and called out loud enough for half the room to hear. "Elena, honey, make sure you check on those appetizer trays. We cannot have the guests going hungry now, can we?" Her smile was sweet, but her eyes were cold. A few guests glanced over, some looking uncomfortable, others pretending they did not hear. Elena nodded quietly and disappeared back into the kitchen. She was good at disappearing. It was a skill she had learned over the past few years. Marcus's younger sister, Rochelle, was in the corner of the room, phone in hand, live streaming the party to her followers. Rochelle had built a modest following on social media by posting about her fabulous life, her outfits, her brother's success. She loved being associated with Marcus's rise in the corporate world. It made her feel important. And like her mother, Rochelle had no love for Elena. She thought her brother's wife was boring. Too quiet. Not glamorous enough for a man of Marcus's status. But the real shock of the night had not happened yet. That came when the front door opened and Vanessa Cole walked in. Vanessa was everything Elena was not, at least in Marcus's eyes. She wore a tight red dress that hugged every curve, her blonde hair flowing in perfect waves down her back. Her heels were so high they made her tower over most of the guests, and she walked with the confidence of a woman who knew every eye in the room was on her. Vanessa worked with Marcus at Meridian Development. She was the marketing director, ambitious and ruthless, the type of woman who saw every interaction as an opportunity to climb higher. And 6 months ago, she had set her sights on Marcus. The affair had started small. Late nights at the office, business dinners that went on too long, text messages that Marcus thought he was hiding, but Elena knew. She always knew. She had seen the way Marcus's face lit up when his phone buzzed. She had noticed the new cologne, the extra care he took, getting dressed in the mornings. But she had said nothing, because Elena had learned a long time ago that sometimes silence was the most powerful response, and because she was not just enduring this marriage, she was documenting everything. Marcus's face broke into a wide grin when he saw Vanessa. He crossed the room quickly, wrapping his arm around her waist and kissing her cheek in front of everyone. Some guests looked away, embarrassed. Others whispered. But Judith clapped her hands together like she had just witnessed something wonderful. "There she is," Judith announced loudly. "Vanessa, darling, you look absolutely stunning. Come sit with us." Rochelle immediately rushed over, hugging Vanessa like they were old friends. "Girl, that dress. You are serving tonight." Vanessa laughed, soaking up the attention. She glanced around the room until her eyes landed on Elena, who was standing near the entrance to the dining room. For just a moment, the two women locked eyes. Elena's expression did not change. She just looked at Vanessa with a calmness that was almost unnerving. Then she turned and walked away. What nobody in that room knew, what Marcus and his mother and his sister and his mistress could not possibly imagine, was that Elena Marchand Wells was not the broke, unambitious housewife they believed her to be. She was the sole heir to a $4.2 billion fortune, and in exactly 47 minutes, Marcus Wells was going to lose everything. his job, his home, his family, his reputation. But right now, in this moment, he thought he was untouchable. He had no idea his wife owned the ground he was standing on. Literally. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back. Way back. 18 months earlier, to be exact. 18 months before that fateful birthday party, Elena sat in her cozy home office, carefully adding watercolor details to her latest illustration. Moonbeam Rabbit was about to go on another adventure, and Elena wanted every page to be perfect. This was her passion, creating children's books that sparked imagination, that made kids laugh and dream and believe in magic. She made about $45,000 a year from her illustrations. Not much by most standards, certainly not impressive to someone like Marcus. But it was hers, something she had built with her own talent. Her phone buzzed on the desk beside her. She glanced at the screen and smiled when she saw her best friend's name. "Girl, I saw Marcus's Instagram." Diane Lawson's voice came through sharp and concerned. Diane was a divorce attorney, one of the best in the city, and she had been Elena's closest friend since college. "He is at some rooftop bar with that marketing woman again. Third time this week." Elena continued painting, her brushstrokes steady and precise. "I know." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "You know? And you are just sitting there drawing bunnies?" Elena smiled slightly. "I am documenting. There is a difference." She set down her brush and opened a hidden folder on her computer. Inside were screenshots, photographs, receipts, credit card statements. 18 months of evidence, carefully organized and dated. "You know what my mentor at the firm always says," Diane continued. "Document everything. Dates, times, screenshots. The spouse who prepares wins." "That is exactly what I'm doing," Diane sighed. "Elena, I still do not understand why you will not just end this. You have the money. You have the evidence. You could bury him tomorrow." Elena's hand moved to the gold locket around her neck. Inside was a photograph of her father, Victor Marchand, and a tiny USB drive that she had never used. "Because I made a promise to my father, to never let money define who loves me. I wanted to believe Marcus loved me for who I am. And now I need to know how far he will go." Elena closed the folder and looked out the window at the sprawling estate grounds. The rose garden her father had planted was in full bloom. The same roses he had tended himself when this was just his dream, before it became her reality. Victor Marchand had been a genius when it came to real estate. He started with nothing, just a high school diploma and a determination that bordered on obsession. He worked construction jobs during the day and studied property law at night. He saved every penny, lived in a tiny apartment, ate cheap meals for years. And slowly, painfully slowly, he started buying properties. Foreclosures, fixer-uppers, land that nobody wanted. He renovated them, flipped them, reinvested the profits. Over 30 years, he built a portfolio worth hundreds of millions, then billions. But here was the thing about Victor Marchand. He never showed it. He kept his wealth hidden, operated through shell companies, reinvested everything. He did not drive fancy cars or wear expensive clothes. He did not brag or show off. He wanted to protect his daughter from gold diggers, from fake friends, from people who would love her for what she had instead of who she was. So he raised Elena in simplicity. She went to public school, wore regular clothes, had normal friends. She helped her father in the garden on weekends, learned to cook, did her homework at the kitchen table. Victor taught her about character, about kindness, about treating people with respect, regardless of what they had. "Real wealth is not in your bank account," he used to tell her. "It is in your heart." On Elena's 18th birthday, Victor gave her the gold locket. She remembered that day so clearly. They had been sitting in the garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "This is special," he told her, placing the locket in her hands. "Inside is my photo and a message. I want you to wear this every day, and one day, when you are older, you will understand what it means." Young Elena opened the locket and read the engraving inside. "Royalty does not announce itself. What does that mean, Daddy?" Victor smiled and tapped her chest right over her heart. "It means you do not have to tell people you are special. You just are. And the right people will see it without you saying a word." Elena wore that locket every single day from that moment on. Through college, through graduate school, through every triumph and heartbreak, it became a part of her. Victor passed away suddenly when Elena was 22. She was in her final year at the prestigious Art Institute, pursuing her dream of becoming an illustrator. She got the call early one morning. Her father had suffered a massive heart attack at one of his properties. By the time she got to the hospital, he was gone. The funeral was small, just like Victor would have wanted, but Elena noticed something strange. There were men in expensive suits, people she had never seen before, business associates, lawyers, investors. After the service, one of them approached her. His name was Walter Harrison, and he introduced himself as her father's attorney. "Miss Marchand, we need to talk. Your father left some things for you." That was the day Elena learned the truth. Her father was not just a property manager. He was Victor Marchand, one of the wealthiest real estate developers in the country. He owned properties in 12 states, apartment complexes, commercial buildings, shopping centers, land. The estate was valued at $4.2 billion, and all of it, every single penny, belonged to Elena. Walter Harrison became Elena's trustee, managing the properties and investments while she processed her grief and figured out her path. And Elena made a decision that would shape the rest of her life. She decided to honor her father's wish. She would not tell anyone about the money. She would live simply, work hard, and let people love her for who she was, not what she had. That decision is what led her to Marcus 5 years later. She met him at a community fundraiser in Atlanta. Marcus was a mid-level manager at a development firm, ambitious, charming. He had this smile that lit up a room, this confidence that made you want to be around him. Elena was volunteering at the event, helping organize donations for a local youth center. Marcus approached her, started talking, made her laugh. For the first time since her father's death, Elena felt something close to happiness. They dated for a year. Marcus was attentive, thoughtful, everything she thought she wanted. He opened doors for her, called when he said he would, talked about building a future together. Elena fell in love. And when he proposed, she said yes without hesitation. But she never told him about the money. She wanted him to love her for herself. When they got married, Elena approached Walter with a request. She wanted to live in her father's estate mansion, the one Victor had built with his own hands. Walter was hesitant, but Elena insisted. She told Marcus it was a rental, a lucky deal through a friend of a friend. Marcus did not ask many questions. He was just happy to be living in a mansion, impressing his colleagues, climbing the social ladder. For the first 2 years, things were good. Marcus was loving, present. They had Maya, then Lucas 2 years later. Elena threw herself into motherhood, while quietly running her father's charitable foundation anonymously. She was happy, or at least she thought she was. But as Marcus's career took off, things changed. He got promoted to senior manager, then director, then vice president. With each promotion came a bigger ego, a colder heart. He started making comments about Elena not working, about her not contributing financially. He did not know she was running a multi-million-dollar foundation. He did not know she owned the building his company leased. He did not know anything real about her, because he had never bothered to ask. The bank was quiet on that Tuesday morning. Elena had come in to transfer money for Maya's school trip. A simple task that should have taken 5 minutes. But when she slid her card across the counter, the teller frowned. "I am sorry, Mrs. Wells. This card has been declined." Elena blinked. "That is impossible. Can you try again?" The teller tried twice more, then called over her manager. After several minutes of hushed conversation and computer clicking, the manager approached Elena with an apologetic expression. "Mrs. Wells, it appears your name has been removed from this account. The primary account holder made changes last week." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. "Removed? What do you mean, removed?" "According to our records, Marcus Wells transferred $200,000 to a new individual account and removed you as a joint holder on the primary account. Without your name on the account, there is nothing I can do." Elena sat in her car for 20 minutes after leaving the bank, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. He was trying to make her financially dependent. He was trying to trap her. She picked up her phone and called Walter Harrison. Walter answered on the second ring, his voice warm and grandfatherly as always. "Elena, what is wrong? He is cutting me off. Marcus moved our money and took my name off the accounts." There was a long pause. "Elena, you have $4 billion. Say the word and I will have papers drawn up by end of business today." "Not yet. I need to know how far he will go." Walter sighed heavily. "Listen to me carefully, young lady. In any divorce, the one who controls the narrative controls the outcome. Right now, he thinks he is controlling you. Let him think that, but document every financial move he makes. Bank statements, transfers, hidden accounts. When the time comes, this becomes evidence of financial abuse." "That is exactly what I am doing." "Good, because I have been waiting 15 years to watch you stand up for yourself. Your father would be proud." Elena touched her locket. "I hope so." That night, Marcus came home late, reeking of expensive whiskey and Vanessa's perfume. Elena was in the kitchen, cleaning up from dinner. The children were already in bed. Marcus barely glanced at her as he loosened his tie. "Long day?" Elena kept her voice neutral. "You have no idea. Wilson is writing me about the Henderson project. Deadline got moved up." Elena set down the dish she was drying. "I went to the bank today." Marcus froze for just a fraction of a second. Most people would not have noticed. But Elena had been watching him for 18 months. She noticed everything. "Oh yeah? My card was declined. Apparently my name was removed from our accounts." Marcus shrugged, his face arranging itself into an expression of innocent confusion. "Must be a bank error. I will look into it. They said you transferred $200,000. A longer pause. This time. "It is for a business investment. You would not understand the details. Try me." Marcus's jaw tightened. This was new. Elena did not usually push back. "It is complicated financial stuff, Elena. Just leave it alone." He brushed past her and headed upstairs without another word. Elena stood alone in the kitchen, her heart pounding. She had her answer. He wasn't even going to pretend anymore. She pulled out her phone and opened the hidden folder, added the date, the incident, his response. Screenshot after screenshot. The spouse who prepares wins. 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. Marcus's younger brother Connor showed up at the house while Marcus was at work. Connor was everything Marcus was not. Gentle, principled, he had become a public defender while Marcus chased corporate success, and the brothers had grown distant over the years. "Elena," Connor said, shifting uncomfortably on the front porch. "Can we talk?" She led him to the garden, to the bench near her father's roses. "I know we have not been close," Connor began, "and I know my family has not treated you the way you deserve." Elena waited. "Marcus is planning something for his birthday party next month. Vanessa is involved. He has been talking to lawyers about custody arrangements." Elena's blood ran cold. "Custody?" He is going to try to take the kids from you. He has been telling people you are unstable, that you have delusions about your family being wealthy. He is setting you up. Connor looked at her with genuine concern in his eyes. I thought you should know. I do not agree with what he is doing, what any of them are doing. I am sorry I did not speak up sooner. Why are you telling me this now? Connor looked at the roses, then back at Elena. Because my mother is cruel, my sister is shallow, and my brother has turned into someone I do not recognize. But you have always been kind to me, even when my family treated you like dirt. That means something. After Connor left, Elena sat alone in the garden for a long time. The sun was setting, painting the sky in familiar shades of orange and pink. Marcus was going to take her children. Her children. She thought about all the times she had stayed quiet, all the insults she had swallowed, all the cruelty she had endured in the name of keeping the peace. No more. She pulled out her phone and called Diane. I need you to find me the best family law attorney in the state. Someone who knows how to fight dirty. Finally, Diane said, What changed? He is coming for my kids. Then we go to war. Elena touched her locket, felt the familiar weight of her father's photo against her chest. Not yet. I have an idea. His birthday party is in 4 weeks. 200 people. His entire professional network. I am listening. I want him to destroy himself in front of everyone who matters to him. I want the whole world to see who he really is. Diane laughed, a sharp sound of admiration. Now that is the Lazina I have been waiting for. The first session of couples therapy went surprisingly well. Marcus had come home 3 days after Connor's visit, with flowers and apologies. He was attentive, remorseful, everything Elena had once wished he would be. I want to save our marriage, he said, his eyes wet with what looked like genuine tears. I have been so focused on work that I lost sight of what matters. You, the kids, our family. Elena agreed to therapy, playing her part perfectly. Hopeful wife, cautious optimism. But she knew something was wrong. Marcus had never apologized for anything in his life. He did not admit mistakes. He did not show vulnerability, unless there was something in it for him. The therapist's office was decorated in soothing blues and greens. Dr. Patricia Coleman was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice. The first session was all about communication, active listening, expressing needs without blame. Marcus performed beautifully. He took responsibility for working too much. He acknowledged that Elena felt neglected. He promised to do better. Elena watched him the whole time, looking for the crack in the mask. The second session started differently. Dr. Coleman's questions took an unexpected turn. Elena, I want to explore something Marcus mentioned privately. He said you sometimes have elaborate beliefs about your family background. Elena kept her expression neutral, but her heart began to race. I am not sure what you mean. He mentioned that you believe your deceased father was secretly a wealthy man, that you sometimes make references to hidden fortunes. Elena looked at Marcus, who was watching her with an expression of practiced concern. I worry about her, Marcus said softly. These fantasies have been getting worse. She claims we are living in a house her father built, even though we rent it. She talks about trusts and attorneys and billions of dollars. Dr. Coleman nodded sympathetically. Elena, do you ever feel disconnected from reality? And suddenly, Elena understood. This was never about saving the marriage. This was about making her look crazy. If Marcus could convince people she was mentally unstable, he could take the children. He could claim she was unfit. He could use her father's secret gift against her in the most twisted way possible. She stood up abruptly. The session is over. Elena, please, Marcus said, reaching for her arm. We are trying to help you. She pulled away from his touch. You do not want to help me. You want to destroy me. She walked out of the office without looking back. 3 days later, the papers arrived. Not divorce papers, a psychiatric evaluation order. Marcus stood in the living room as Elena read the document, his arms crossed, his expression cold. If you do not comply, I will petition for emergency custody. A mother who is mentally unfit cannot raise children. I am not mentally unfit. Then you have nothing to worry about, do you? Elena's hands trembled as she held the papers. This was worse than she had imagined, so much worse. If she refused the evaluation, she would look like she had something to hide. If she revealed her wealth to prove she was not delusional, Marcus's lawyers would pounce, demanding half of everything. And if she submitted to the evaluation with Marcus having already poisoned the well, she might actually lose her children to a panel of doctors who had been primed to see her as unstable. She was trapped. That night, after Marcus went to bed, Elena sat in the darkness of her father's study. She held the locket in her hands, staring at his photograph. What do I do, Daddy? How do I fight this? And then she remembered. The USB drive. Her father had put a tiny USB drive in the locket along with his photo. She had never used it, never even looked at what was on it. Victor had told her it was for emergencies only, for a moment when she truly needed protection. Was this that moment? Her phone rang, making her jump. Elena, it was Diane. I just heard from my contact at the courthouse. Marcus filed the petition today. You have 30 days to complete the psychiatric evaluation, or he can petition for emergency custody. I know. I got the papers. We need to accelerate the timeline. Whatever we were planning for his birthday, we need to do it sooner. No. No? Elena looked at her father's photograph. The evaluation is in 2 weeks. The birthday party is 1 week after that. I will pass the evaluation because I am not crazy. And then I will destroy him at his party like we planned. Elena, this is risky. If the evaluation does not go well, it will go well. I have spent my whole life being underestimated. Let him think he is winning. Let him feel safe. That is when people make mistakes. Diane was quiet for a moment. Your father would be proud of you. Elena smiled sadly. I hope so, because right now, I am terrified. The psychiatric evaluation took place in a sterile office building downtown. Elena sat across from Dr. Robert Franklin, a stern man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and a notepad that he wrote in constantly. Mrs. Wells, your husband has expressed concerns about your mental state. He mentioned that you have persistent beliefs about your family being wealthy. Elena had rehearsed for this moment. I have never claimed that. He said you believe your deceased father was secretly a billionaire. Elena paused, considering her words carefully. My father was a real estate investor. He passed away when I was 22. I loved him very much. I do not know where my husband got the idea that I have delusions about his wealth. So, you do not believe you are secretly rich? I am a children's book illustrator. I make $45,000 a year. Does that sound like someone who believes she is rich? Dr. Franklin studied her face for a long moment, then wrote something in his notepad. The evaluation continued for 3 hours. Questions about her childhood, her marriage, her mental health history. Elena answered everything calmly, honestly, never taking the bait when Dr. Franklin probed about money or inheritance. By the end, she could see the confusion in his eyes. The woman sitting before him did not match the description Marcus had provided. She passed, but the victory felt hollow. That same week, Maya came home from school in tears. Mommy, what is wrong with you? Elena knelt down to her daughter's level, brushing hair from her face. What do you mean, sweetheart? The kids at school are saying things. They said Daddy has a new girlfriend. They said you are crazy. Is that true? Elena pulled her daughter into a tight embrace, fighting back her own tears. No, baby. None of that is true. Then why are people saying it? Elena did not have an answer. Later that night, she discovered where the rumors had started. Judith had been talking to other parents at the school, spreading lies about Elena's mental state, painting her as unstable, unfit, dangerous. Her own mother-in-law was trying to destroy her reputation. And then came the photograph. Rochelle posted it on a Sunday evening. A family dinner photo showing Marcus, Vanessa, and both children sitting around a restaurant table. The caption read, "The future looks bright." Elena stared at the photo in disbelief. Marcus had taken the kids for his scheduled weekend. He had told her they were going to the park. Instead, he had taken her children to Vanessa's apartment. Let them spend time with his mistress. Use them as props for his sister's social media content. Something broke inside Elena at that moment. All the patience she had cultivated, all the strategic thinking, all the careful planning, gone. She called Diane at 2 in the morning. He put my children in that woman's home. For content. I saw the post. Elena, I am so sorry. No more waiting. Call Walter. It is time. Are you sure? I have never been more sure of anything in my life. His birthday party is in 9 days. 200 witnesses. His entire professional network. What do you want to do? I want his mother there when she realizes she has been living in my father's property for 3 years. I want his sister filming when her brother's world collapses. I want every person who ever looked down on me to watch him fall. Diane was quiet for a moment. That is beautifully savage. I learned from the best. The next morning, Elena drove to Walter Harrison's office. He was waiting for her with coffee and a stack of documents, 3 inches thick. I have been preparing for this day for 15 years, Walter said, sliding the papers across his desk. Property deeds, trust documents, corporate filings, everything your father built is right here. Elena looked at the paperwork, at her father's signature on document after document. I need you to do something else for me. Name it. I need you to crash the birthday party. Walter Harrison actually smiled. It would be my absolute pleasure. For the next 9 days, Elena played her role flawlessly. She cooked Marcus's meals. She coordinated his birthday party. She smiled when Judith made snide comments. She nodded when Rochelle filmed her for content. She was the perfect submissive wife, and behind the scenes, she was orchestrating his destruction. The strategy sessions happened at Diane's office, late at night, when Marcus thought Elena was asleep. We cannot just drop this at random, Walter explained during their final meeting. He will claim you fabricated everything. We need witnesses. We need it to be public and undeniable. 200 witnesses, Elena said. His bosses, his colleagues, his family, everyone who matters to him will be there. The timing has to be perfect, Diane added. We wait until he has done something unforgivable in front of everyone, something that makes him look like the villain he is. Then we strike. Elena nodded. He will give us something. He cannot help himself. He has to humiliate me. It is who he is. Walter spread out the documents on the table. Here is what we have. Property deeds for 47 properties across 12 states, including the estate where the party will be held. Corporate filings, showing you as the sole beneficiary of the Martian Trust. Bank statements proving you have been paying the property taxes on his mother's townhouse for 3 years without her knowledge. Elena looked at the numbers, still struggling to process them even after all these years. And the building where Meridian Development operates, owned by the Martian Trust since 2014. Your father bought it specifically because he knew Marcus worked there. Elena froze. What? Walter's expression softened. Your father did his research on every man who showed interest in you. He knew about Marcus before Yuba did. He was not impressed, but he respected your choice. So he bought the building as insurance. in case you ever needed leverage. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. He was protecting me. Even then, he never stopped protecting you. That is why he left you everything. Diane leaned forward. So, we are basically planning a heist, but with lawyers. Walter raised an eyebrow. I prefer to call it a strategic revelation. Heist sounds cooler. Elena laughed for the first time in weeks. What about after? Marcus will fight this. He will claim marital assets. Walter shook his head. The trust was established before your marriage. You have never commingled the funds. Every property, every investment, every dollar is protected. His lawyers can try, but they will lose. And the children? Given his behavior, the affair, the financial abuse, the custody manipulation, any judge in the country would side with you. Elena looked at her two best allies, the people who had stood by her through everything. Thank you, both of you. I could not do this alone. You are not alone, Diane said. You never were. The night before the party, Elena stood in her father's study one last time. She opened the locket and looked at his photograph. Tomorrow, she whispered. Tomorrow I stop hiding. She had spent her whole life honoring his wish, letting people love her for who she was instead of what she had. But she had learned something important in the past 18 months. Sometimes the people who claim to love you do not actually love you at all. Sometimes they love what they think you are. And when they find out the truth, their love evaporates like morning dew. Marcus had never loved her. He had loved the idea of her. The quiet wife, the supportive partner, the woman who would never outshine him. Well, tomorrow she was going to outshine everyone. The estate had never looked more beautiful. Elena had coordinated every detail. The flowers, the catering, the lighting, the jazz band. 200 guests filled the grand ballroom, glasses of champagne in hand, celebrating Marcus Wells on his 42nd birthday. Marcus moved through the crowd like a king, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, soaking up the admiration. He had no idea what was coming. Elena wore a simple black dress, elegant but understated. The gold locket hung at her throat, catching the light from the chandeliers. She had a hidden earpiece in her left ear, connected to Walter, who was waiting in his car in the driveway. We are in position, Walter's voice said. Just give the signal. Not yet. He has not done anything yet. Trust me, he will. The evening progressed. Dinner was served, speeches were made. Judith insulted Elena 3 times, each comment sharper than the last. Rochelle filmed everything, providing running commentary for her followers. And then Marcus took the microphone. Elena's heart began to pound. Thank you all for being here tonight, Marcus said, his voice carrying through the ballroom. 42 years old, and I finally know what I want. What I deserve. He gestured to someone near the back of the room. Vanessa stepped forward, gorgeous in her red dress, beaming with confidence. Several guests exchanged uncomfortable glances, but Marcus was not finished. Maya. Lucas. Come here, please. Elena's blood ran cold. Her children walked slowly toward their father, confusion written on their young faces. Marcus put a hand on each of their shoulders and looked out at the crowd. I want to introduce you all to the woman who is going to help me build the life I deserve. From now on, my children are going to call her Mom. Gasps rippled through the room. Your real mother, Marcus continued, glancing at Elena with barely disguised contempt, has done her best. But sometimes best is not good enough. Judith laughed loudly, clapping her hands. About time someone said it. Rochelle zoomed in on Elena's face, capturing every moment. Lucas started crying. Maya looked at her mother with desperate, pleading eyes, and something inside Elena snapped. Not with rage, not with despair, with clarity. She touched her earpiece. Now. 3 minutes later, the front doors opened. Walter Harrison walked in like he owned the place, which, technically, his client did. He was followed by two associates carrying briefcases. The music stopped. The room fell silent. "Good evening," Walter said, his voice cutting through the confusion. "My name is Walter Harrison. I am the senior attorney for the Marchand Estate Trust." Marcus frowned. "Who invited lawyers to my party?" Walter ignored him, walking to the center of the room. "I am here to deliver some important information. It concerns the ownership of this property and several related matters." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. This estate was built in 2012 by Victor Marchand, one of the most successful real estate developers in American history. Upon his death, it was transferred to his only daughter and sole heir. Walter turned to look directly at Elena. "That heir is Elena Marchand, your wife." The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, disbelief, dawning horror. "What?" Walter continued, but his voice steady and authoritative. "Victor Marchand built an empire valued at $4.2 billion. He kept his wealth private to protect his daughter from exactly what has happened in this room tonight. People who would value money over character. People who would love her for what she has instead of who she is." He spread documents across the nearest table. "Elena Marchand Wells is the sole heir to everything her father built. Every property, every investment, every dollar." Rochelle's phone clattered to the floor, clattered to the... Judith swayed on her feet. Marcus just stared, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Elena stepped forward, her voice calm and strong. "I stayed quiet because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I have. I thought if I was patient, if I was kind, if I served and sacrificed, you would eventually see my value." She looked at Marcus, at the man she had once loved. "But you did not. You could not, because you were never really looking at me. You were looking at what you thought I was. Someone quiet, someone controllable, someone beneath you." She gestured at the room around them. "This mansion? My father built it with his own hands. Every brick, every chandelier, every rose in the garden. He poured his heart into this place, dreaming of the family that would fill these halls." Her voice hardened. "And you turned it into a mockery. You brought your mistress into my father's home. You humiliated me in front of my children. You tried to take my babies from me." She turned to Judith. "You called me worthless. You laughed when your son told our children to call another woman mom. You have been living in a townhouse I own for 3 years, eating food I paid for, while treating me like garbage." Judith's face went gray. Elena looked at Rochelle. "And you? You filmed my humiliation, posted it online for your followers, turned my pain into content." Finally, she faced Vanessa. "And you? You thought you won something. You thought you took my husband, my life, my family, but you were just a temporary distraction in a game you did not even know you were playing." Walter stepped forward again. "I have some additional documents to deliver." He handed Marcus a large envelope. "This is a 30-day eviction notice. You have 30 days to vacate this property." Marcus's knees buckled. "You cannot do this. She owns the property outright. She absolutely can." Walter handed another envelope to Judith. "Mrs. Wells, the townhouse you have been living in, rent-free, is also owned by the Marchand Trust. You also have 30 days to vacate." Judith collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her face. Marcus looked around the room at all the shocked faces. His colleagues, his bosses, his family, everyone who had ever respected him was now staring at him with expressions ranging from disgust to pity. "This is not over," he said, his voice shaking with fury. "My lawyers will tear this apart. You cannot just spring this on me and expect me to walk away with nothing." Elena smiled. "Actually, I am counting on your lawyers." Marcus's lawyer arrived 20 minutes later. His name was Richard Thornton, a shark in a $3,000 suit. He had clearly been on standby, waiting for this exact scenario. "Under California community property law," Thornton announced, "any assets revealed during marriage are subject to division. My client is entitled to half of whatever Ms. Marchand possesses." Walter shook his head. "The assets are held in a trust established before the marriage. They are not marital property. But she benefited from them during the marriage. She paid for things. The trust dispersed funds. That creates a commingling argument." Marcus's smile returned, thin and vicious. "You think you won? I will tie this up in court for a decade. You will never be free of me." Elena felt her heart sink. He was right. Even with all her wealth, a legal battle could drag on for years. Marcus could petition for custody again and again. He could drain her resources with endless motions and appeals. She had won the battle, but the war was just beginning, and then she remembered. The USB drive. Her hand moved to the locket around her neck. "Walter," she said quietly, "I think it is time for Exhibit B." Walter's eyebrows rose. "Are you certain?" Elena nodded. She unclasped the locket, removed the tiny USB drive from behind her father's photograph, and handed it to Walter. Her father had told her this was for emergencies only. For a moment, when she truly needed protection. This was that moment. Walter plugged the drive into the room's presentation system. The screen flickered to life, and suddenly, everyone in the room was watching a video of Marcus Wells committing multiple felonies. The footage showed Marcus and a business partner in an office discussing a development project. Their conversation was damning. "The building has safety violations. If we report them, we lose 6 months and $2 million. So we do not report them." Exactly. Bury the inspection report. Bribe the inspector. Move forward with the Henderson project on schedule. But if something happens, nothing will happen. And if it does, we have fall guys. That is what junior staff is for. The room was dead silent. Elena watched Marcus's face drain of color. The Henderson project, the building that had partially collapsed last year, the accident that injured 3 construction workers. Marcus had known about the safety violations. He had covered them up. Her father's voice came through the speakers next, a recording that must have been made years ago. "If you are seeing this, Elena, it means someone tried to hurt you. I spent my life investigating the people around you. I hoped you would never need this, but if you do, use it wisely." Elena looked at Marcus. "My father built an empire by knowing people. He knew you before I did. He left me everything, including your secrets." Marcus stumbled backward. "That is inadmissible. You cannot use illegally obtained—" Walter cut him off. "It has already been forwarded to the district attorney's office, and to your company's board, and to 3 news outlets. You are finished, Mr. Wells. Not because your wife is rich, because you are a criminal." Marcus turned to run, but 2 security guards blocked his path. Someone had already called the police. The real revelation was not Elena's wealth. It was Marcus's crimes. And in that moment, watching her husband's world collapse around him, Elena felt something she had not experienced in years: peace. 6 months later, Marcus Wells stood trial for fraud, conspiracy, and reckless endangerment. The evidence was overwhelming. His own words, captured on video, condemned him. Former colleagues testified against him. Documents emerged showing a pattern of corruption that went back years. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Vanessa Cole resigned from Meridian Development the day after the party. She moved to another city, deleted all her social media, and disappeared from public life. Years later, Elena would learn that Vanessa had sent a letter to the 3 workers injured in the Henderson collapse, apologizing for her role in the cover-up. She donated half her savings to their medical expenses. It did not make up for what happened, but it was something. Judith Wells moved in with a distant cousin in another state. Her pride was shattered. Her son was in prison. Her reputation was destroyed. She never spoke to Elena again. Elena did not mind. Rochelle's social media following turned on her overnight. The video of her filming Elena's humiliation went viral, but not in the way she had hoped. Brands dropped her. Sponsors disappeared. Comments flooded her posts with mockery and condemnation. She eventually deleted her accounts and took a job at a retail store. The influencer life was over. Connor Wells was the only family member who reached out. He came to the estate a month after the party, hat in hand, apology on his lips. "I should have done more," he said. "I should have spoken up sooner. I should have protected you from my family." Elena looked at the man who had tried, in his own small way, to warn her. "You did what you could. That is more than anyone else in your family managed. Can we start over? As family? Real family?" Elena thought about it for a long moment. You can visit the children. They need some connection to their father's side that is not poisonous. "Thank you. I do not deserve your kindness." "No, but I am choosing to give it anyway. That is what my father would have wanted." The divorce was finalized 3 months after Marcus's conviction. Elena received full custody of Maya and Lucas, with supervised visitation allowed once a month if Marcus chose to exercise it from prison. He never did. The Marchand Trust reclaimed all properties that had been used by the Wells family. The estate remained Elena's home, but she renovated it extensively, making it truly hers. She kept her father's study exactly as he had left it: his desk, his books, his photographs. On that desk, she placed the gold locket, open, so his picture was always visible. The charitable foundation went public. The Elena Marchand Foundation for Women's Economic Independence helped thousands of women escape financial abuse, rebuild their lives, and find their own paths. And through it all, Maya and Lucas thrived. They went to therapy, processing the divorce, the betrayal, everything that had happened. Slowly, they healed. They understood that their father had made terrible choices. They still loved him in the complicated way children love flawed parents, but they did not need him. Their mother was enough. One evening, about a year after everything fell apart, Elena sat with her children in the garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in familiar shades of orange and pink. "Mommy," Maya asked, "why did you not tell Daddy about the money?" Elena considered the question carefully. "Because I wanted him to love me for who I am, not what I have. But he did not love you at all. No, baby, he did not. He loved the idea of me, the quiet wife who would never challenge him. That is sad. It is. But you know what I learned?" "What?" Elena touched the spot where her locket used to hang, "that the right people will love you exactly as you are. You do not have to be rich or poor, loud or quiet, successful or struggling. The right people see your heart, and that is what they love." "Like Aunt Diane?" Elena smiled. Exactly like Aunt Diane. Lucas, who had been quietly picking flowers, looked up. "Grandpa Victor sounds nice. I wish I could have met him." Elena pulled both children close. "He would have loved you so much. And you know what? I think he is watching over us right now, making sure we are okay." From heaven? From wherever good people go when they leave us? He is still protecting us. He always will be. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Elena had spent her whole life honoring her father's wish, living simply, staying humble, not announcing herself. But she had learned something important. Royalty does not need to announce itself because it knows its own worth. And when the time comes, its actions speak loud enough. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, Elena's life had found a rhythm she never expected. Her children's book sales had exploded. The publicity from the trial had drawn attention to her work, and parents across the country were buying Moonbeam Rabbit for their children. Elena had become an unlikely celebrity, the quiet illustrator who turned out to be a billionaire. She gave interviews sometimes, carefully choosing outlets that would tell her story fairly. Her message was always the same: know your worth, document everything, never let anyone make you feel small. The foundation grew. Thousands of women wrote to thank her for sharing her story. Domestic violence organizations partnered with her. Politicians invited her to speak about financial abuse. Elena had become a symbol of something she never intended to represent: hope. But through it all, she stayed grounded. She still illustrated her books. She still tended her father's roses. She still cooked dinner for her children every night. Some things were too precious to outsource. On a Tuesday morning, in early spring, Elena sat at her favorite coffee shop, working on her newest illustration. The book was about a little girl who discovers she has magic powers, but chooses to use them quietly, helping people without them ever knowing. It was autobiographical in ways only Elena understood. "Excuse me." She looked up. A man stood beside her table. Early 40s, handsome in an understated way, kind eyes, simple clothes. "I am sorry to bother you," he said. "I have seen you here every Tuesday for the past month." I finally had to introduce myself. Elena studied him carefully. He did not seem to recognize her, did not seem to know about the fortune, or the trial, or the foundation. Just a man, noticing a woman, working up the courage to say hello. "I am Daniel Crawford. I teach history at Lincoln High School." "Elena, I illustrate children's books." They talked for an hour. Daniel was funny and thoughtful. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He talked about his students with genuine affection, about the joy of watching young minds discover the past. He was everything Marcus had pretended to be, and nothing like him at all. When they finally parted, Elena felt something she had not experienced in years. Possibility. Maybe she could try again. Maybe not everyone was like Marcus. Maybe there were good people out there who would love her for exactly who she was. She walked to her car, smiling. Behind her, Daniel Crawford pulled out his phone and stepped into an alley. He dialed a number and waited. "Yeah, I made contact." A pause. "She has no idea?" "She seems to trust me. Give me a few more weeks." Another pause. "The inheritance?" "Of course, that is still the target. But we have to be patient." The last guy moved too fast, and look what happened to him. He hung up and looked back toward the coffee shop. Something cold flickered in his eyes. Then he smiled and walked away, already planning his next move. Elena drove home, unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. She had survived Marcus. She had protected her children. She had honored her father's legacy. But the world was full of people who saw her wealth as an opportunity, and some of them were more patient than Marcus had ever been. The story of Elena Marchand Wells was far from over. In her father's study that evening, Elena opened the locket and looked at his photograph one last time. "Royalty does not announce itself," she whispered. But perhaps she was beginning to understand. Royalty also had to stay vigilant. The right people would love her for who she was, but the wrong people would always be watching, waiting for their chance. And Elena? She would be ready, because her father had taught her well, and she was done being underestimated. The end, or perhaps just the beginning. If this story moved you, If you felt that satisfaction when Elena finally stood up for herself, do me a small favor. Hit that like button. It tells me you want more stories like this. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you would have done in Elena's place. Would you have waited like she did? Or would you have revealed the truth sooner? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Someone who might be feeling small right now. Someone who needs to remember their worth. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because Elena's story is not over. Remember that man at the coffee shop, Daniel Crawford? He is not who he says he is, and that story, coming soon. Closing statement. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to bring meaningful lessons and inspiration to our viewers. Every story we share is crafted with purpose, designed not just to entertain, but to empower. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for watching until the end. And remember, you are more powerful than you know. Until next time, stay blessed, stay strong, and never let anyone dim your light.